Hi, I'm Julie.
And I'm Caleb. Welcome to Nursing You, the podcast where we redefine nursing in today's healthcare landscape. Join Julie and I as we step outside the box on an unconventional healing journey.
Together, we're diving deep into the heart of nursing, exploring the intricate relationships between caregivers and patients with sincerity and depth.
Our mission is to create an open and collaborative experience where learning is expansive and fun.
From the psychological impacts of nursing to the larger implications on the healthcare system, we're sparking conversations that lead to healing and innovation.
We have serious experience and we won't pull our punches, but we'll also weave in some humor along the way because we all know laughter is often the best medicine.
It is, and we won't shy away from any topic, taboo or not. From violence and drugs to family and love, we're tackling it all.
Our nursing knowledge is our base, but we will be bringing insights from philosophy, religion, science, and art to deepen our understanding of the human experience.
So whether you're a nurse, a healthcare professional, or just someone curious about the world of caregiving, this podcast is for you.
One last thing, a quick disclaimer before we dive in. While we're both registered nurses, nothing we discuss here should be taken as medical advice. Always consult with your doctor or a qualified healthcare provider for any medical concerns you may have. The views expressed here are our own and don't necessarily reflect those of our employers or licensing bodies.
So let's get started on this journey together. Welcome to Nursing You, where every conversation leads to a healthier world.
Welcome back.
Here we are. Now, we did our New Year's episode that I think will be the first one in January. Will it be on the 5th? Yeah, because the 29th came out.
Yep.
But we're actually recording this on January 1st.
On the 1st, yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting because we decided not to do it on Sunday, which is our usual recording day. And that I just like that it fell on the 1st. Like it feels like a good stepping stone to move forward into the 2025. So
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And we've been talking a lot about in the last couple podcasts about looking into the future, as one does when the year clicks over to the next number. And, we've talked about a lot of futuristic things. We've talked about, AI. We've talked about a lot of history and how that's relevant now and where the future of nursing, where the future of this podcast might be going. And I've also had a lot of thinking. I've been thinking a lot about my future. Like, I've had a word of the year. I don't probably since I quit drinking. So that new year, I quit in November of 2017. And so in January 2018, that was a real turnover year for me. I left night shift. So I quit drinking in November. And then in December, I went to 2 weeks of intensive outpatient therapy. What is it? IOP, intensive outpatient, whatever.
Yeah.
And so that was like daily for 2 weeks. And so I worked weekends, overnights during that time. But I knew that I was going to go to day shift. I had been on nights for like 22 years. So 2018 is when I went to day shift. And so I must have come across something that was like, word of the year. And then you kind of, you bubble off of that all year long kind of. And that, has a connection to that year and kind of brings your thoughts back to, oh yeah, okay. I forget what my word was. Maybe I think it was purpose, because I left a life that had no meaning. And I was like, you have purpose. You have to find what gives you purpose in life. So basically what is meaningful to you. I didn't even know. I was so disconnected from my body and was just robot. I was just a robot.
Yeah.
Now, I did continue to be a robot for multiple years. Or I kind of got out of it a little bit, but it was so hard to focus on the not drinking. It's like you just have to take one layer at a time. And that was one layer of the not drinking. And then kind of relearning who I was without alcohol, which was huge. So that was like whole death of ego, ego. I mean, really, and letting go, because that was like a death. I felt alcohol was like a friend that I lost, like like we just can't see each other anymore. Like it sucks with this kind of toxic, loving relationship. Like I love you. And we had a lot of great times, but you're like a dick, and I feel like shit, and things aren't going well. So
Right.
it was a lot of loss, but then, propulses you forward to find stuff. So that was my first year having a word. And so when I was thinking of this year, I thought, you want a word? A word to right. This doesn't cover it at all
Uh-huh.
anymore for me. Not one word. I I need I require more to keep my soul alive and well than just one word. So it's not a word. It's it's kind of a place where I want to be, like
Mm.
mentally, where I'm going to not just notice that I'm there, but I'm gonna purposely put myself and do the things I need to do to purposely maintain. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Mhm.
Like maintaining, I don't want to hold on, like I don't want to grasp to strings anymore. I want to have like a fucking solid foundation. And, you know,
I'm about utilities.
mhm,
Like there's like when you're talking about being robotic, like it's finding the balance between being robotic and intentional. Like there,
mhm.
you can only be intentional so much of the time. You can't be
Right,
intentional at every single second. Like
right.
there's like one of the things that I really appreciate about the structure that a hospital provides is the routine, that having those routines and the structure of those routines enables me to move freely in other ways that I couldn't without that. So finding that balance
Yeah.
is, I
Yeah,
think,
that makes a
important.
lot of sense. I've even noticed that lately when I've kind of been like my school this semester was over, so I don't have that anymore. And, we kind of got the podcast under control a bit. It
Yeah,
seems
right, right.
it's flowing. And so I don't know if that just created more space for me to think about things. But what I've been noticing is my uh leaning back to work more like shifts at the hospital. I hadn't been picking them up very much. And I've been busy, but you're right. The shifts at the hospital are, like, easy,
Uh-huh.
It does it and I think you saying that
Easy because you have the routine and you know all of the
yes.
things that you have to do. Yeah, not easy,
Yeah.
like it's not easy work, but it's easy to
No, no.
step into that role. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we've been doing it for so
Because
long.
it's yeah.
Yeah, so as I learn these other ways about myself and it allows me to not have to think so much about like, "Oh my god, am I doing this right?" or "Who am I working with?" or, "Oh, oh, gotta go to the committee," and or just, all the things that you did. The days are long, and I've also been noticing how am I now that you're working, like, 12 hours on the floor. So it's a med surge floor. Well, they take telemetry too, but nothing critical, nothing real sick. Um and really, the most I ever have is like 4 patients. So, I'm over here like, I could take an ad. I mean, I could that's fine, and then other nurses are like, "Oh my god, we need another nurse." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" You know? So it there's an ease to it. And then I had to get over the whole script that I had of like, get away from the hospital, get away from the hospital, get away from the hospital. So there's something there. There's something there that's pulling me back. I mean, money, you know, we all need the money. But
Right?
I'm grateful that it allows me the mental space to be able to focus on insides and my soul and just continuing to be happy rather than, hanging on by threads, and just being
Mhm.
pulled. I feel more controlled, you know. And I think a lot of it's just from all the work that I've already done, but it's always a journey, so there's always more work, and so we're always in a new season.
Uh-huh.
And And so when you look at this 2025 year, is it gonna differ for you, or is it just kind of continuing on your path?
Well, I mean, continuing to work on this is obviously important. I had a couple of really, um, I would say, inspiring moments in hospice recently. Just, the flow of that work is so different than anything I've ever done before because it's, there's no rush. Like you have your patient, your caseload that you have to get done. But if it doesn't get done today, as long as it gets done tomorrow, it's
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Like the pressure is so much less. There's still emergencies that you have to respond to, whatever. There was this one patient that I was wrapping up my visit, and they were tearful because they didn't expect to see 2025.
Oh.
This person was having a lot of anxiety and fear around the anticipation of death.
Mm.
They thought that they would be gone already, and they're not. And what now? What am I? What am I?
Right.
I'm supposed to be dead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Wait a
so
minute. Supposed to be
the
dead.
conversation that ensued was just, for me, for my soul, like it's almost like I'm talking to the like patients from the past, patients
Mm.
that didn't get the opportunity to have I didn't get to have the conversation with them about their death. They're just fucking dying on me, and I
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
do
yeah.
anything
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, in some really beautiful way, doing hospice is allowing me to have the conversations that I never got to have with those patients that did die,
Mm.
that they weren't ready, they weren't prepared, the panic in their face as they
Mhm.
were dying, all of these things. Even though, and I do think that the conversation was therapeutic. I think that this person, at the very least, they laughed. I got
Mhm.
to make them laugh.
Mhm. Mhm. That's so huge,
And
though. It is.
yeah, I think it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think there's a chance I could really like doing hospice.
Mhm.
After that experience, and there's been a couple of others, and it's just like, it's kind of strange. I feel like the harshness of my career in critical care jaded me and took away the kind of innate kindness that
Mhm.
exists within my being, that
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
that is who I at my core truly am. But when all of the junk gets piled up, and you have all these terrible experiences, you build this thick shell around yourself that the real you can no longer, like, funny because the if that's the innate part of me, then the parts of me that are, for lack of a better term, bad acting,
Mhm.
those bad acting attributes are the shadow.
Yeah.
And when you build up all these shells on top of you from all these harsh experiences, the goodness that exists within you becomes the shadow.
Yeah. Mm. Mhm.
And so you have to, like, then when you uncover all of these elements of yourself, when you go and you do the work, you're in the therapy, and you're engaged in active introspection and all these things, and you start peeling off these layers of the shell to reveal the true nature, then you can get, I think that's part of becoming whole, instead of
Mhm.
having, like, not that there's not a shadow, but that the two are then working together in a functional capacity.
Yeah.
um that, like, I can be a dick. I built that shell up pretty good. If I need to be a dick, I can
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
But I don't need to.
No, and
I,
that's not your
I
true nature. Yeah.
It's not my true nature.
No.
So I guess as I think about 2025, I could, if the situation was really right, I could see myself making a full transition to hospice care.
Mm. Mhm.
um, it kind of calls forward that part of me that entered into healthcare innocent
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
kind, and I'm no longer quite so naive.
Yeah.
But this situation, because there's an acceptance, a fundamental acceptance of the mortality, family interactions. I'm sure that there are negative ones. I'm
Mhm.
certain of it. I have not experienced it yet. All of my interactions have been beautiful
Mm.
and good. So there is a difference there as well.
Well, and
And that
again,
that
I mean,
allows that part of me to come forward.
yes, as
Yeah.
we evolve, I mean, that's what we do from the moment we're born. We're the moment we're conceived. We're evolving and we're growing from the inside out. I mean, it's just how it is. And so, as we continue to evolve and change who we are, we see different things because the different things are reflected to us as we change on the inside. The reflections start to change. And so you meet people who are very aligned with you. You find jobs that are very aligned with you. Things just are created for you when you're open to the evolving. I always
Mm.
think of like minding your mental health and caring for who your soul is. It is like debriding a wound, is how can see it.
Ah, yes.
Ah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
you first look at it and it might be a little bruised and there's some like eh, blanchy weirdness, but skin intact. And the next day you go in and you got the little hole and you're like, that looks weird. And now next week you come back and there's, a 12 centimeter hole fist
Oh,
in, tunneled down, like, so what do? We take them to the OR, we open it up, we wash out all the nasty bad bacteria, we pour antiseptic stuff on it, we clean it, we tend it, sometimes twice a day, 3 times a day, we take the dressings, we wash it, we wash the inside, we're continuing to pull all the goo off
some
and
Dakin
redress it.
solution.
Bacon's, packing, all of
Yeah.
that. But then what happens? So it heals
That's
then from
that
the
smell of
inside out.
iodoform. It's
Oh,
like
I
I can smell it.
otiform.
I can
Ooh,
smell it right now.
they have this new thing. I did a wound, the other day because the outpatient nurse was gone, and they have this new stuff. It's, hard foam, and you cut it, and then you get it wet, and then it's this, like a weird slippery dressing, but I think it's got silver in it. I'd never used it before, but you can, get it in the bed of the wound
Mm,
and stuff it up and around,
mm.
and man,
Ooh.
and the nurse who was with me was like, "Oh," she thought she was gonna show me because I haven't worked there very long. I probably no one's ever seen me do a wound, and so I just get in there, glove, dip, 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 get the thing off, get the thing. I'm packing, and holding it's like holding chopsticks when you hold those little things, you know exactly where to push and
Uh-huh.
push.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she looked at me and she was like, "Oh, I can see you've done this before." And I was like, "I have. I have. I don't wanna be the wound nurse, but I've done a lot of
Yeah.
dressing changes, so I'm
Yeah.
pretty confident in that I can pack this wound." Oh.
Oh, we've done some complex wounds.
Oh my god. And it never gets better for me. I mean, I'm less like, "Bleh." And this was clean, so it was outpatient. It wasn't that bad, but
Right.
it's the it's the pushing down into when you can see your stick under the skin from above when you're
Mhm.
pushing. Yeah. Woo. It never really gets easier.
I don't wanna gross our
No,
viewership out.
no.
Um, should I it's really bad. It's a really bad story.
Ooh. Let's just go for it.
Are you sure? It's one of my worst. You
Ooh.
you may remember it.
I
You
can
may remember
Oh
it.
god, it just the wounds are flooding back in my memory. I'm sure every nurse knows a wound. Every nurse can think of a wound, that wound that they were like, "What is this?"
It was vaginal fistula.
Yes.
You remember it?
Oh, I have seen maybe 2 of them that got really bad, and that we may be thinking of the same one.
Yeah, it was so
Yeah.
bad. It was
Oh
unbelievable. It
god,
was
the ones I've
unbelievable.
No, it's not even right,
It's
and so
not
painful.
it's
No.
not only nurses will really understand what I just said,
Yeah,
or healthcare professionals.
yeah.
It's so bad. It's
Oh, so bad.
And when they're and then if they're awake.
The one I was thinking was awake, and I think we had a lot of trouble managing her pain. You know, a lot of nurses don't like to give a lot of pain medicine, but I'm like, "She's in the ICU. If she quits breathing, we'll just put her on the ventilator." Like,
We'll just
what?
we'll just tube
Why are
her.
you
Yeah.
I know. Why are you letting her lay there in excruciating pain? Like, give her 10
No
of morphine.
way.
If we need to put some
Oh,
oxygen on her, we will.
all of it. Give her all of it. Yeah,
All of it. All
absolutely.
she can have every 10 minutes.
All
It doesn't matter.
everything. Yeah.
We can put a BiPAP on her. It is gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Oh,
Same,
I know.
same. I
I
still
know.
live by that. I still live by that.
So the wound example helps me to see that it's evolving. It's slow and it happens in stages,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
like, it really is constant care. You can't just get through one thing because, then the next time you take the dressing off, maybe it's worse again in the one side, and so you have to go back and you have to do a little bit more there. But it's always noticing, always looking, always checking in. How are
Yeah,
you? How are you doing?
but the other side of that is that with wounds, just like wounds and the analogy of healing yourself, you can't recognize the change when you're assessing daily. It's only
Right.
when you come back a week later or 2 weeks later or 2 years later, 5 years later, that you
Yeah.
can really see the radical transformation that's happened. And then you
Mhm.
you pull back that band-aid and you're like, oh wow,
Yeah.
this looks so good.
Yeah.
The edges are approximated and
Right.
pink, and
Yeah. Everything
the
looks good.
granulation tissue is
That resonates a lot because when you so I just and I did a year review of like questions. There were some journal questions like reviewing your year. So reviewing your accomplishments, things you might have done different, where you are with this, and this, and it was that really that I was like, I really have come a long way. Like, and it's different than achievement come a long way. Like that was a thing for me, like, getting the master's degree, getting this, doing that,
mm,
being a coach, like make these accomplishments. That's not what I want to count for my life. So I have to get away from that programming that makes me feel guilty because I didn't finish this or I've changed my mind or, whatever. But it really is when you look back, you're like, but I'm a completely different person. And getting to know who you are on the inside and what you really, really want is actually very hard. Sometimes they're like, "Well, what do you want?" What visualize, let's visualize like where your future. Sometimes I can't even. I don't even know. All I do know is that I want to be calm, happy, peaceful, satisfied. I want things to happen with ease. I want things to come to me just naturally. And so doing inner work and again continuing to peel those layers back of the ego that just build up over time. Nobody can help that. It just is. And getting to the true essence of really who I am, I'm still learning. Like I thought I didn't know myself after I quit drinking. That was just like one gal back. Like
ah,
I'm so many different gals and really so for me this year is gonna be, I think, just exploration of me without trying to manipulate, all this, "Oh, I gotta I don't wanna work at the hospital, so I have to focus. I have to get a job going. I have to do this. I have to do this." I don't wanna try so hard, actually. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just gonna go to my nurse job, which I love, and really just continue to excavate what's going on inside, and I've never felt like this before. So I have cut something. Some cord has
uh-huh,
been cut
uh-huh.
because the the pressure to achieve and build and make is gone a little bit. Not gone.
Mm,
Very, very less than it has been. And even with this podcast, it's like, I don't feel the, like, chest crushing anxiety of like, "Oh my god, we have to be the first. We have to get that. We have to do social media. We have to market. We have to get something. We have to do this." It's really just been very easy to like, let's just see where it goes.
yeah.
And like I'm okay being okay with that is what I'm like, "Are you?" Actually, I am. I have a lot we talk a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what do you feel about this year? And if you were to look back over 2024, what are some achievements that you have, and achievements, and I'm not talking about like, you know, I'm just talking like personal, emotional, excavating, you know, evolving things
I
have
mean,
happened.
I think probably doing this work with you is the biggest thing that happened in 2024 for me.
Yeah.
In terms of that personal excavation. I mean,
Yeah.
it's allowed me to say things out loud that haven't been said. It's caused me to go back over a lot of the things that I have learned over the last 10 years of reshaping myself.
Mhm.
And becoming who I am today. I would say this has been tremendously healing. It also, I don't know if I've said this on here. I know that I've said it recently, but I can't remember if I've said it on here. But it does feel like, regardless of where this takes us or where it goes, it feels really good to me that, if I died today, my kids and my family would have uh, most of the answers that they would need to the questions they have about me.
Yeah.
That what I mean, I know my parents listen, but I don't know that anybody else really listens in my family right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
But if I were to just no longer exist here, I have a lot of peace knowing that when the time is right for my children to understand who I am, they would see the side. They would get to see, the best part of me. I'm
Yeah.
really close to tearing up about that right now.
Yeah.
They would get to hear me say from my own mouth about my experiences, what brought me to such a devastatingly low place,
Mhm.
and I believe that would heal their hearts,
Yeah.
as well as my other family members that just can't understand me because their life experience is so radically different than mine.
Right.
So for me, that's the biggest thing of 2024.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been path changing for me,
Hmm.
really. And something that I had thought about for a very long time, either writing a book or starting a podcast. And I just wouldn't have ever done it by myself. It's not something that I would have
Hmm.
just been able to, because those weird thoughts that you're like just coming along, you're like, oh, well, I could do a podcast, or oh, I could do that, or yeah, I should do that. Over the years, it's so weird how things just like keep popping in your mind. You're like, is that crazy? Or who is saying that? Like, who's saying that to me?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying
yeah,
it, but my mouth is not saying it, but who's saying that? So is it like the ego, or is it really
yeah.
truly me?
I literally had this thought last night. I was falling asleep, and those little dreams that you have, you start like you see someone and they're talking, and then something happens and you wake up, and it's like I was thinking, like, I recognized that. Who, like, the disconnect between this dream state and myself, which actually I'm going to share this. This was so incredible. I can't quote who it was because I don't remember. But light exists. We can observe light in two fundamental capacities: as a waveform and
Mhm.
as a particle. But they
Mhm.
can't be viewed as both simultaneously. And this scientist was presenting the idea that consciousness is existing in a waveform and as a particle. That I can't remember. I'm sure we'll be able to get close in just thinking about it. But the idea that consciousness is a waveform that is active, where these so in anesthesia, they think that these microtubules within the brain are collapsing from the anesthetic gases, and that's what shuts consciousness off. So
Mm.
in that collapsed state, it the brain is functioning as a particle. But
Mhm.
when we're conscious and awake and aware, it's a waveform. It's open. It's moving. It's fluid.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fascinating idea, and I think there's a Nobel Prize for this
I think
uh,
so too.
data that just came out.
Yeah.
But it's I mean, that kind of it kind of gets to the answer of the experience that I had in that transitional place
Yeah,
last
yeah.
night of sleep and awake. Like
Mhm.
it was collapsing, but then it opened again. It's like
Yes.
in that collapsed state, all of the information that was flowing through that in the waveform,
Yeah.
it like meets and starts
Mhm. It's so
moving
strange. Well,
internally. Like,
it's very, quantum physics, and I have read what when I read things about quantum physics and things in nature and energy and the vibration and the particle, and when it becomes, a vibration is when there's a tension on it, and when it's not, it's solid. No, the opposite. When there's a tension on it, it's a particle and it's solid, you can see it. When there's
mhm.
not, it's all waveform,
Uh-huh.
and that thoughts create energy, and the energy is also a waveform, so that all plays into something, and that's why they say your attention, which really is your thoughts about it, you're attending it, you're thinking about it, creates energy, and so that energy attracts like energy, and so, in a grand example, it would be, someone who just gets out of bed and they're shitty and they have to go, and then they stub their toe, and then they're cussing and they're so mad, and then the toothbrush falls on the floor with the toothpaste, and like, those mornings, like nothing goes right. You every stoplight, and you're just like more mad and more mad and more mad. It's the power of the thoughts and the energy that is creating and attracting like energy. And it's in that I've been trying to practice letting go of my thoughts about certain
Mm.
things and then being present. So, bringing yourself to the just now, like what's going on right now, where am I and where am I sitting and what am I doing versus all the thoughts about everything. And things tend to tip my way a lot, like
Mm.
front row parking, um, not a lot of traffic, uh the best seat in the house, and when you can get in that flow of being present and thinking, not ruminating on shit that happens, just to
Mhm.
literally, like, let it go,
Just let
to
it
not
go.
create thoughts about it, it can't come to you if you're not creating thoughts about it. It's so interesting, and so I have lots of books. I read lots of books all at once. Do you read one at a time, or do you read lots
No,
of
no,
books?
no, no. I have
Yeah,
stacks of books.
me too, and
And I'll
I
get a
read
chapter
lots.
here out of this one, a chapter
Same.
here out of that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kinda like, what do I feel like reading? And so then I'll read a little bit of that. But I have
Mhm.
multiple books on, thoughts and energy and vibrations and quantum physics, and so I love the quantum physics because it's actual data and science and research and things that can be, measured, not just like, "Oh, I don't know, I just had no red light," I just flew down the
Uh,
but
mhm.
it's science, and so it definitely intrigues me, probably because it makes sense. It makes things make sense to me, I should say.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm writing about,
Yeah,
the science.
yeah, yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky because
It's very tricky.
when you talk about spirituality and, like, being just above the humdrum of daily living, and then to merge the science with it, it's like it can be almost merged, but there's still, like, these 2 fingers just won't go. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? Like, it gets so close, and I don't know, I would, and I'm very ignorant. I mean, just getting basic into it. Um,
I wouldn't
what
call
do you
you ignorant. I think we're highly educated people.
Well, I think
Nursing
ignorant about this subject particularly, like, in this with the science and
well,
the
it's just
spirituality and blending.
yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of the frontier I think that we're on. That's what actually the chapter that I'm writing, not chapter, but the leg of the writing that I'm on right now is talking about how, up until, you know, like like 1680 when the Enlightenment started. I think it was 1683 is the official date, I believe. Actually, it says 1680 here on the book.
Mhm.
Up to that point, we had only leaned on spirituality, whatever, like in the context of Western civilization, it was predominantly Christian, but we we leaned entirely on spiritual texts to answer the existential questions that humanity faces. Why am I here? What is the purpose of my life? Why do bad things happen to good people? Why suffering? Why death? Why? Tail end of that, the 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648, tremendous suffering, tremendous death. And on the other side of that, we said, we need to look to the material world and use logic and reason to elucidate the answers to these existential questions. So for the last 17, 18, 19, last 300 some years, we've leaned on reducing our material world to understandable parts. We still have all of those same questions.
Yeah. Yes.
So we've leaned. This is what I'm writing about. We've leaned on spirituality to answer these questions, and now we've spent 300 years leaning on materialism and understanding our material natural world. All of the same questions remain, and so to me, and like this data that's coming out about consciousness, it's like, to me, that is these two worlds coming together, that we're in a moment where this understanding that we've come to through studying the material world, and in some ways I think just to get the idea to study consciousness from this in this way has a spiritual element. It's where the pursuit of material understanding intersects with or crosses over into spirituality.
Yeah.
And so we have a unique opportunity. I think this is the saving grace of the time that we're in, is that smart people will figure out how to navigate that path to blend, because so much of the dogma that the spiritual texts can cultivate, I think eventually will fall off. That as we have deeper and deeper understanding of the reality of the relationship between the material and the spiritual through science and spirituality, the two kind of become one. And I'm not, that's it's a very expansive thought, and one that I think is probably fraught with a lot of tension. Especially that's part of, one of the reasons why I'm trying to understand all of this is that I think my assessment is that science has, because Enlightenment period begins 1680, and we create this reductionist system of understanding our material world, but we still hold on to the spiritual texts as well. It's not like those things just disappeared.
No,
They've still held on. But we're at a point where science has replaced religion, in the sense that we have gone so far with it, and for a long time we've been in this place. We've gone so far with our understanding of science that the PhDs and the doctors and the scientists are the high priests of the religion of science. That it requires a high degree of faith in the data, in the work that they've done, to believe in the science. And at the same time, because of the capitalistic nature of our scientific process today, we have been told that, milk is bad for you, cholesterol is bad for you, eggs are bad for you, all of these things are bad for you. And then 5 years later, we come to find out that, oh, they're not bad for you. We're just kidding.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the rug gets pulled out from under us all the time, and it undermines any real science that's done. And I would finish with the biggest problem with science as a religion, as a religious entity, because that is how I think of it. The biggest problem with that is that there is no overriding moral or ethical code that comes along with it. There are morals and ethics that are process driven. And even those, as we know, pharmaceuticals, nobody
Mhm.
trusts pharmaceuticals. Nobody trusts this data that's coming out of these institutions that we know are funded by X, Y, and Z,
Right. Mhm.
um, because it's because
Yeah.
it's funded by X, Y, and Z.
Right. I
So,
mean, yeah,
but
super
but
biased.
so the morality, or the lack of moral structure, to me, is the scariest side of science, as it becomes, that's the thing. During COVID, people said, I believe in science. You can't believe in science. Science is a process.
Yeah.
You can believe that the process of science produces an element of truth, but to say that it produces an all-encompassing truth
Yeah.
is fundamentally false.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, and I
So,
mean, there's so many things that science has proven and then are then unproved. Then it's proved that it's actually something else. And so, you know, there's been a lot of things that have happened with science that have created a lot of distrust.
mhm,
But then, but we need science because, the science and understanding and researching and testing things, that's we need all of that. But to eliminate spirituality from any of that is you're never gonna get anywhere. Like, you're just gonna go
mhm,
round and round and round and round like a hamster wheel
mhm.
because it's always gonna be it's always changing, always changing. They're gonna find something new in this or disprove that or this, that, and the other, or someone was lying or someone was paid, you know? But spirituality is just that. Like, it's just there's no question about it. It's harder to hold on to because it's not just like science is to me very in the head and it's very, logical and you can understand it. It doesn't take a lot of emotion to understand and allow science and data to come into your conversation. But if you're having like a spiritual conversation or a spiritual um, experience with yourself or you're trying to understand who you are, none of that is tangible. It's spiritual and it
Mhm,
takes more. It takes more energy from your body and your heart and your mind to put it all together using emotion and looking at things that are discomfort and it can create a lot of discomfort. And so I think people, maybe that's why they steer away from spirituality. Why do you think people don't just embrace spirituality that it's great, all you have to do is think of it and you're gonna change your body? I mean, that's been proven over and over and over that even with just your thoughts that you can change your body DNA. You can literally heal
mhm.
and change yourself with just thought. It's been proven.
I mean, if you
And
want my answer, I think I
yeah,
have an answer. It's control.
yeah.
Which is a product of enlightenment, that I can reduce. I can take this problem, and I can reduce it to its empirical form, and I can figure it out. I can figure it
Mhm.
out. You know, you get stuck in that trap, and that kind of science as a process of discovery it's exciting, fulfilling, enthralling. I don't know.
Mhm.
These are,
Mhm.
um, when we require data to validate our experience and everything, fundamentally undermines the innate mystery of life.
Mhm.
That life is a beautiful mystery, and we can, like, in some ways, it's that mystery is undefinable. It's you can't explore it. It's There are no words. I think it's Carl Jung that talks about transcendence as a form of the eternal,
Mhm.
and that when you try to define something that is eternal with words that are describing space and time and volume, mass,
Mhm.
uh, you're fundamentally limiting the eternal, and it's no longer eternal.
Right.
Something eternal has no words.
Yeah.
And so, and with that, there's this expansiveness, and lack of control that I think what you're saying about people not following this practice of spirituality that is proven to change our DNA. It's proven to change how our body functions. When you go into these spiritual places, I think that transcendent eternal element can be so overwhelming for people, especially with the backdrop of the psychology of an enlightened society.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
That was a lot. My
Yeah, but
goodness.
it's deep, but it does make sense. And so, for people who are, what's a spirituality? What are you talking? It's just it's a level of higher consciousness, really. So, a lot of people really go through life living kind of unconsciously. They're very
Mhm,
habit driven. They do the same thing every day. They take the same way to work. Everything is very habitual and it doesn't leave a lot of room for your brain and your conscious to like play and be
mm,
happy and choose and do that because you've got it set in these ways and that is usually the way that you've kept yourself safe for a lot of years and it only
mm,
feels safe within that construct of doing the same thing because it's very safe. And
mhm,
if you are unstable emotionally or you have a lot of unstable things in your environment, that's sometimes the only way you can move through life is
mhm,
like that. But something will happen at some point to make you question like this what am I doing? It's that question of like, what does this all mean? Sometime I hope for everyone. Maybe it doesn't for some people, and actually it probably doesn't, but that just means you'll come and you'll come back and you'll have to just do it again. That's
yeah,
my thoughts, yeah. If you don't get it done this time, you'll just come back and do it again in a different body. You have to start from scratch. You'll have to learn it all over. Actually, you will have your karma there, but either way, I think that allowing yourself to become conscious in your own life, which involves being present, being open, looking at people with loving kindness and loving eyes that you would look at yourself, giving a lot of grace to everyone else because they have their shit just like you have your shit, and to try to just to do things differently, to change the brain connections that sometimes are so set almost in stone because we have needed to protect ourselves for so many years, so we've done the same thing, and I think that's why it makes me nervous to go back to nursing, like, at the hospital, because that was always my safe thing, and so then when I was like, "Oh, no, I'm healing, I'm getting better, I don't need that safety anymore," and so I just kind of like, I'm not doing that. Plus, I needed out of the toxic environment for a while, I had to heal and breathe, but going back is almost I've had time to breathe and do some things with my conscious mind to really open up my world that I see inside my brain of what things are. And so it's
mhm,
like I questioned it, I had to run away, and I'm not going back. That's kind of where I was going. I'm not going back for safety. I'm
mhm,
going back because not back, but I'm picking up more shifts and just going to kind of do that for a while. Because I'm choosing to.
mhm,
I'm choosing to do that to make money while I still have a lot of space to work on myself, family, be here with Joey, while he continues high school and that's okay. Whereas before I was like, "Oh my god, if you do that, you're totally going back on all everything that you said about it. You'll go back to living unconsciously again." But that's just not it. Once you open your eyes to see that there is more and you start experiencing more in life than your routine, it's just breaking out of the routine is so hard. It's scary,
mhm.
you know?
Yeah,
But once you're out, you have more you don't it's kinda like being at Worlds of Fun in those did we talk about this one time? At Worlds
I
of
don't
Fun
know.
in those buggy cars, those
Oh,
old-fashioned
yeah, yeah,
cars
yeah,
that as
yeah.
a kid, you thought you were driving. You were fucking driving. You were on a track, and it wasn't gonna take you anywhere except for the track. But by God, you thought you were driving. But that's kinda how I saw and felt my life. It was like, I thought I was driving. I was literally sitting behind the steering wheel, but I was on a track, and I needed that for safety, for
Mhm.
protection, because if not, things would have felt too out of control.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But once you start to kind of heal that stuff, you can go back to some of those things without the same experience, kind of, I guess, kind of PTSD, you kind of get over it a little bit, you work through some of that. And so whereas, maybe at one point you couldn't hear an IV pump go off without literally having a panic attack and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sweating. Oh
Oh,
god,
I
I
still when I come across, on social media and I see
oh,
a ventilator or an
uh-huh.
IV pump, immediately, I blood pressure, anxiety,
Yeah, I
I
had the
mean,
same thing. So I had a
yeah.
COVID patient the other day, and I haven't had a positive COVID patient since COVID, since I left. And I've had patients turn COVID in the ER, but, like, we sent them home. They weren't really sick. This was a sick one in the ICU. So I had to wear a N95. I don't think I put one of those on a long time. The smell of it, when I put
Oh,
that mask
yes.
on,
Yes. Ah.
I literally, I felt my cheeks get, like, hot. I was standing at the cart at the door, and I had to, like, set my stuff down and, like, take a couple breaths because I was like, "Oh my god, this mask." It just, I can feel it in my stomach right now. It just flooded
Uh-huh.
back, and this man by no means was, I think he fell and had a hip fracture, but then subsequently was COVID positive. So he wasn't, like, super sick, and really the fracture and the getting around was the mobility was the issue, but I still had to put the mask on to go in the room. It's crazy. But what
Yeah.
I was saying is you're so sensitive to some of those things in the beginning, but then, like, as you kind of slowly expose, you slowly heal, then they're not such triggers anymore. Like the trigger lessen, not the trigger,
Mhm.
the reaction lessens, and you're
Well,
not so reactive.
that's where, if you remember in our earlier sessions, we talked about the idea that Piaget's object permanence. The Every day the binky gets dropped, the caregiver picks it up and gives it back until the child no longer questions whether or not the binky exists.
Right.
It has established object permanence. And so when someone goes through something traumatic and they develop PTSD or PTS, it is that fundamental. To me, this is my thought is that it is a fundamental regression of object permanence, that the reality that's been
Mhm.
created in their mind has been shattered, and it has to be rebuilt through very consistent structures. And it does exist. It
Yeah,
does exist.
yeah,
It does exist. And I think relationships are that way. I I,
yeah.
I think having the faith that it's going to exist beyond this moment or this day or this week or month or year
Mhm, mhm.
gives you the sense of object permanence, or
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So it PTSD like gets into all of those realms,
Mhm.
because once your reality is shaken sufficiently, all of those relationships, all of those, everything comes into question. It can all fall away,
Yeah,
and rebuilding those structures and rebuilding your confidence in them is what heals PTSD.
yeah, yeah.
So build your structures.
Well, so today, yeah, we just talked about kind of what we're gonna do in 2025 on a kind of a personal level. And I would encourage everyone to, think about it. Think about, rather than writing a list of, things, the usual. I'm gonna go to the gym, I'm gonna diet, I'm gonna do and change and whatever. Just choose to be nice to yourself. Like, just be nice to yourself and talk to yourself and get to know who you are, just through daily, we've talked about things we do. I meditate and I ground with my feet, even when it's fucking cold. I go out and, whatever kind of resonates with you to keep you out of that robot mentality is that's where I'm going to focus this year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, this was fun. It was good.
Yeah. So I think coming up next, hopefully we'll get our hospice series going. I think that's going to be very,
Yeah.
very exciting and very applicable.
Yeah. We also need to do Night at the Museum.
We do. I was thinking about that the other day. I think I'm gonna watch that when I'm at work this
Okay.
weekend. Yeah, I was thinking about it last weekend and I didn't have enough time, but I'm gonna watch it. I think it's on Amazon Prime. I looked it up.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, that would be good too.
All right. Well,
All right.
have a good
Well,
week.
yeah, we'll see you next week.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode.
Remember, the conversation doesn't end here.
Keep the dialogue going by connecting with us on social media posted in the links below or by visiting our website.
Together, let's continue to redefine nursing and shape a brighter future for those we care for. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep nurturing those connections.
And don't forget to be kind to yourself.